Well, this book is actually an extension of my doctoral thesis, which I did, 15 years ago. And it fills in a gap in the literature, particularly in Norway, because most of the books on communication are about corporate communication, which is typically public relations. And the books on organizational communication often tend to have an emphasis on IT. So this book puts together the human element with the organizational psychologist and the communication people, talking about why leaders need to understand communication and also how to do it. The word communication comes from the root word communicare, which means sharing. This is a difficult word for people to understand in an organizational context when it comes to communication, because most communication in organizations is about sending information. And a lot of organizational theory is based on the fact that people need information to do their jobs. So as long as information is communicated, people think that they have done communication. Well, when in fact, the idea of sharing, people need to understand what message needs to be sent to what target, through what channel. So when you have a very diverse workforce, for example, you need to understand how they interpret messages, where they want to receive these messages, and then also what is the objective of your communicating? What do you want people to do? And mostly in organizations, people want, or leaders want, their employees to accept what they're doing, to accept change, to be happy on the job, and communication contributes to all of these things when done properly. The challenge of organizational communication is the fact that it's different from typical corporate communication or public relations or marketing communication, where you have specific channels, you have specific tactics that you use. The fact that we're filming today, for example, in a cantina. The cantina is a wonderful channel of communication. People meet here, they talk here, they interact here. But who's in charge of the cantina as a communication channel? Is it the communication department? Is it HR? Is it the services department? Do people even consider it as a communication channel for helping people come together as an organization, for delivering messages that leaders may have, for getting people on board for sort of different ideas? And it's quite interesting in that regard. And you have other different kind of tactics. They get more into sort of business communication. How do you use your body? How do you use your voice? All of these sorts of things, proxemics and things called haptics, and all the different things we do as people, as individuals, that impact our day-to-day relationship with people and our communication with people, that in the end has an impact on business success. One of the biggest gaps there is between employees and leaders within organizations is the fact that leaders communicate how they think employees want to be communicated with. They don't ask them. And that is the first step in showing a lack of respect for what your employees think. So what happens is that employees get information the way they should, perhaps, through emails and intranets, but it's not the way they want to get information. And it also provides no mechanisms for feedback in a really meaningful way. So what organizations need to do is ask their employees, simply ask them, how do you want information? What kind of information do you want through different channels? What is your preferred method? Instead of deciding yourself what they think, ask them what they think. One of the questions I get a lot from organizations is about this concept called brand ambassadors. It's really quite fun to work with, and a lot of communication people are actually asking me to come in and talk to their leaders about communication. Can you please help us help them understand why communication is so important in organizations? And one of the basic models that we work with is something called the mutual learning model. It's incredibly difficult to practice, but the rewards from it are just astronomical. And basically, it asks leaders to look at themselves, to look at their own personality traits, and to actually evaluate how they engage in conversations with people. Do they really listen to them? And how do you know somebody's listening? That is one of the most difficult questions, and it's one of the most difficult things to actually measure. but you can tell if somebody's listening if they actually do something on a suggestion that you as an employee have. There's nothing more rewarding for an employee to have their boss or their next superior leader listen to them and actually take action on something that they think is important.